Hi, friends. Last week we thought about different pathways to knowing and experiencing God, specifically the pathways of activism and contemplation. Although very different, the pathways of external action and internal thought work together to reveal God's presence and work in powerful ways. One example from the scripture is in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5. Verse 12 says, "Once when Jesus was in one of the cities, there was a man covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he bowed with his face to the ground and begged him, 'Lord, if you choose, you can make me clean.'" The gospel writer Luke, whom tradition says was a physician, tells us that this man was no ordinary leper, but he was a man covered with leprosy. The term leprosy was used to refer to any number of skin diseases, from psoriasis to flesh-eating disease. And the detail that this man is covered is another way of saying he was a difficult case. You might imagine that when the disciples and the others who were following Jesus saw and heard this man, they said from a distance, "What a shame! That poor man." While Jesus, the activist, is vibrating for action and thinking to himself, somebody's got to do something. I'm in. Who's with me? I can hear the disciples saying, "Jesus, we can't help that man. We can't even get close to him. We would be unclean and unable to go to worship. And worse than that, we might catch what he has. Look at him. He's covered. It's hopeless. You can't do anything for him." To which Jesus replies, "Watch me." Verse 13 says, "Then Jesus stretched out his hand, touched him, and said, 'I do choose. Be made clean.' And immediately the leprosy left him." Jesus was dedicated to work actively for his purpose, to bring healing and wholeness to hurting and broken people. He was very successful in that. Verse 15 says, "Now, more than ever, the word about Jesus spread abroad. Many crowds would gather to hear him and be cured of their diseases." And then Luke adds a sentence that seems to be out of place. In the midst of Jesus' success, as the activist champions his cause, Luke writes in verse 16, "But he would withdraw to deserted places and pray." It seems almost to be an afterthought in the story, but I think it's intentionally placed as the key to Jesus' success. Jesus, the activist, becomes Jesus, the contemplative. Perhaps one reason that Jesus retreats for solitude and prayer is to remind him of his dependence on God. As with any human being, and especially an activist, with success comes the temptation to rely on our own talents, abilities, and plans. Maybe the greater Jesus' earthly success, the greater the temptation might be to forsake the way of the cross and to pursue an easier route to bringing God's reign upon the earth. Jesus needed time alone with God to keep his perspective and his priorities aligned with God's. Jesus' times of contemplation connected him with God, the source of his power. He then drew from that power for times of activism. If that pattern of prayer and action, solitude and community, worship and service is good enough for Jesus, I imagine it's good enough for us too. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again tomorrow.